I had the honor of meeting Alice several years ago when she made the decision. I'd heard her name, and I knew that she has been involved in politics, more particularly Republican Party politics, for a long time in the state of Tennessee. And then she threw her hat in the ring and ran for mayor of Nashville. And I can say without any qualification that I wish she had won, and I wish that I could introduce her as Mayor Alice Rolli. I cannot, but I can introduce her as the executive producer of Children's Hospital Alliance of Tennessee. Alice Rolli joins us in that role and to talk about politics generally. Hey.
Hey.
How's it going?
Good. I mean, nine-year-olds are, if Trump and Elon are having a 9-year-old day, I have a 9-year-old, and I'm, happy to opine on the big feelings of little boys. But we don't have to talk too much about that.
That is perfect. The big feelings of little boys.
Yeah, big feelings. Sometimes you need a timeout because you're having some big feelings.
This is what happens when 9-year-olds, one of them is the richest man or the richest boy in the world.
Yeah.
And one is the most powerful boy in the world.
Yeah.
And they both bought themselves social media platforms.
Yeah, and they're breaking up during Pride Month. It's perfect. Bromance. It's over. Okay, Matt, I'm so glad to be back. This is my first time to do any media since my mayoral.
Is this, I mean,
I did one show with Scott Crouch on 17, but no, I've kind of just been head down doing the work and and I've sort of stayed away and
thank you for you. Yeah, well, I want to kind of present maybe a little denouement to that part of your life by saying this. Thank you for speaking for those in Davidson County who don't feel like there's a voice. Thank you for taking on that battle that you knew was always an uphill fight. Everything has to go exactly right for someone of your belief system to win in Davidson County nowadays. And you fought the good fight, and I know how many people appreciate that.
Well, thank you. No, and it was, I know a lot of friends are entrepreneurs and business folks who listen to your show. And I would say it is a little bit like starting or launching a business. You go around and people sort of think, is she serious? Is that really going to happen? And then you start to get, I likened it to, jumping off a high dive in the deep end. And these angels come out. And there were so many people who came out and supported the campaign and said, and frequently at these incessant forums, I mean, I think there were 80 forums that summer, and people would walk up to me and say, you're saying what makes sense, and everyone else is afraid to say it. And I'll maybe give one really specific example with a place that we are separate from the budget, but with security and safety in the city broadly. So I launched my campaign in March 2023. Mayor Cooper had announced the prior month that he was out. He had the endorsement of the FOP, the Fraternal Order of Police. When there is no endorsed candidate, they welcome anyone running to come to their meetings. It's Monday night, the first Monday on Welshwood Avenue at the Lodge. You can go there as a candidate. You're thinking about running for something, talk to the police, ask them what they need, ask them what they're thinking about. I went there the first Monday in March. No one else was there. I thought, well, maybe they've all been here, or maybe they know something I don't know, right? Speak to them. Then I go back the first Monday of April, a few days after the Covenant School shooting, when you think every person in our city would want to be there who's running for office to say thank you to our officers for what they did and how different that was than the officers in Uvalde. And no one was there other than the congressional offices. And they said, they don't want to be seen with us. And that was the moment where I knew I needed to run to give regular people a voice to say, we appreciate you, police force. We appreciate what you're doing. Just try to say what I think regular people are thinking. So
I have to inundate you with questions about the current state of affairs and just generally your perception of what's going on in and around Metro Nashville. And you go right to the heart of it. I mean, is there any reason why we don't have mechanisms like FUSUS or LPRs in place, except for personality types on the council that have prevented it? Because It just feels like they have to ignore the real crime problem that is present in front of us to be able to ignore the need for systems like this.
No, I think personality problems is well put, right? Because if when I first was running and said I support LPRs, it was, Alice, you're racist. You are racist for wanting to put LPRs in the place where the most crime is occurring, which was done in a very data-driven way. Instead of saying, well, the whitest part of our city, Belmead, has LPRs all over it.
Right.
Nobody's running around Belmead saying you're racist, right? They're saying those LPR and the data, we're turning it over to Metro to help us solve crimes. We're turning it over to Wilson County. We're turning it over to Sumner County, or even the department, the State Department. So first, that was the personality charge. You must be racist. Second, it was in the final debate, it was you must want to follow women's reproductive health decisions, and you're going to turn this information over to the state. That was fascinating. And now, and it really is the council running the mayor's office, because what you watched in this last LPR and FUSUS debate is you actually watched former council people who were completely against LPRs when they were in the council and FUSUS, who were now arguing for it. Dave Rosenberg and the mayor were then arguing for it recently. But the council is in charge, and it's not going to pass because now it's immigration.
And I'm not. It's not. That's right.
New.
And I'm not going to. And look, I'm not asking you to agree with this, but I don't say this to just be nasty. I mean, I call him Feckless Freddy because he really doesn't. I mean, LPRs is a great example. The council passed the authorization.
Yep, and we had almost a 2-year pilot.
And you had they're waiting on contracts, and they have to approve the contract. So it's just to make sure people understand. The pilot program happened. They agreed that the pilot program was successful. They agreed to move forward with the full program, the full license plate reader program. Freddie had to bring them contracts, and they had to approve the contracts. Freddie's excuse for not bringing, it's on him to bring the contracts. His excuse for not bringing the contracts is, well, they wouldn't approve them now because the nature of the council has changed. Well, make them vote on it. Make them not approve it. If you claim that you support LPRs, and he goes back and forth depending on which audience he's talking to. When he's in front of my audience, he'll say he's personally in favor of them. When he's in front of other audiences, he won't say that. And therein lies the problem, that he's allowing what he thinks the council will. I mean, I think you're exactly right. He allows what he thinks they're going to do to dictate what he does as mayor.
And yes. And so, we don't have to go, we switch gears, but I will say earlier today, I have gotten to work, you mentioned, I think some, folks in the legislature before I know Lee Reeves was on, have gotten to work this last session quite a bit with the Israel Tennessee caucus and then just broader anti-Semitism legislation that was brought. And earlier today was on a sort of a task force meeting. And all of our houses of worship that are concerned about crimes against their community, the Jewish community first and foremost in the city, want things like FUSUS, right? And that's a private business or private entity saying, we'd like to feed our crime data directly in there so that if there's a bad guy coming on our campus, you can know that right away.
We'd like to have that direct relationship with law enforcement. That's what that's all about. What, I know many people that listen are curious about your thoughts about public safety as it pertains to what the latest has happened. I know that many on the city council want to turn this into a brown person issue. I don't believe that it's a brown person issue. I think it's a law and order issue. And frankly, I've made the case that for those communities that we know are higher in terms of the illegal alien population, those communities need the criminals out of their areas as well, and they suffer more so than Alice Rolli or Matt Murphy, because if a criminal commits an act against them, they don't feel like they can go to the police. Yep,
that's right. And we say this a lot. You got to get back to more nouns and verbs and less adjectives, right? When you call, you want the police to come, period. Right? If you see a crime being committed, and I hear the side that says over policing, but if we have better prosecutable evidence from FUSUS or LPR data, then instead of doing a general search for a 5'6" man of a certain build and background, we can say, I'm looking specifically for this car registered to this person who lives at this address.
Right.
And so can we be more precise in finding the right person instead of creating fear in the entire community of sort of looking for somebody based on a general description?
All right. final thought on Davidson County, and then I want to ask you about what you're doing now.
Yeah.
So, property taxes.
Yes.
When I first got here in late 21, everybody was still smarting over the Cooper property tax increases. And how dare he increase our property taxes during a time where, folks aren't working and we got COVID going on and whatnot. And then here we are again. And so O'Connell comes on the show and says, well, Matt, he telegraphed it in January to his credit. He did not discount it. He said, Matt, a reassessment year of values, that's the time for us to reassess whether or not we're appropriately rating it. And we have to equalize it. And after that, we're going to figure it out. And it's a little complex how that happens. But bottom line is the mayor has proposed a budget that would include effectively a 27% rate increase for most Davidson County residents. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I brought
it's a little
something.
Open-ended.
I know. I brought something from my dear friend, Dr. Achinta Ray, who's over at Tennessee State University. Check out Dr. Ray and many of his writings on this topic. If we step back and say 6 years ago to today, we have added $1 billion of property tax collection from Davidson County residents. $1 billion in 6 years. I think that the citizens of Davidson County would have liked first to see a budget that said, I am not raising your property taxes. And this is what the budget would look like to not do that, right? And then to come in to say, I'm raising your property taxes 27% because these are the things that I think are important, right?
Like, give us the side by side.
Yeah. And instead, the direction is our rates are really low. That's what they always say. Our rates are really low, Alice. Your rates are really low. But your rates are not what you pay. On a per capita basis, we are the highest taxed, and it's not a city-county issue. It is literally Dr. Ray, and shout out to him. I believe him. He pulls together so much defensible data. On both city-county tax, so if you're Mount Juliet and Wilson County and you look at collections and per capita basis, we are the highest taxed. And so the idea that you're running around saying, our rates are really low, therefore we must tax you more because it's an appraisal year, versus this is what my budget would look like if I held the rate flat, and this is what I'm asking you taxpayers to add. And one operates from a perspective that is your money, the taxpayer. The other operates from the perspective of I'm supposed to do this because it's an appraisal year, right?
Well, and you're dead on psychologically with how this is being played, because if you were to present the flat budget, let's call it, and then present the alternative, and then you're giving the counselors and the people an opportunity to compare and contrast. What you do is, if you're the mayor and you present a budget that's already embedded with the 27% increase, you're forcing the council to take things away from the community. That's
right. Yeah. And once a zero-based budget, all your business people on here, they don't start with and I had a conversation with Washington this morning. What are y'all doing about these cuts and whatever? And I'm like, well, we're starting with saying, what do we actually need versus what did they send us last year? When you look at 2019 to 2026, the growth in spending, and I know you're earlier on the federal side, and people go, it's a cut. I'm like, it is a cut back to a place where, if you're spending 15% more now today than you were 4 years ago, but instead we're sort of saying you're cutting half of the budget, was this inflated budget?
Well, and it's a page out of the federal playbook, right?
Yep. Yes.
So if you embed a 5% increase in your budget year to year, right? And so this year I spent $100, and embedded is a 5% increase, so I'm going to spend $105 next year. But I, as the leader, come up and tell everybody, hey, we don't have the money and we can only have a 3% increase this year. Then my opponents tell everybody that I'm cutting the budget. I'm not cutting the budget. I'm cutting the increase. And so when Freddie embeds the 27% property tax rate increase
or when
into the budget,
people say you have the lowest rate over and over and over again,
right. So you're misinforming the public for the purpose of forcing the opposition to defend what aren't cut. So if I'm a city councilor and I say, hey, maybe this is too much, boss, can we just do a 15% increase? Then the people that support this look at me and go, oh, why do you want to cut the budget? Well, I'm not cutting the budget. We're increasing the budget. I'm just cutting the increase. So, I mean, you're playing with semantics, but it's important because let me tell you, I've talked to people. My good friend Pamela Furr is one of them. And she's a great example, and she's a very public-facing example where she said, I live in Davidson County. I've been living in Davidson County for decades, and I'm making plans to move out of Davidson County because Davidson County is becoming unaffordable to regular people. And final thought, I'll give you the final thought on this. On the property tax front, simultaneously while they're doing this, Freddie looks at the people and is arguing that he's going to bring affordable housing back to Davidson County. How do you do both? I mean, because the suggestion is that the landlords that own the property
are not going to pass on the rate increase. No, we said exactly the same thing. And I think most people listening say affordable for who? You are also trying to and you look at our vacancy rates right now here in our non-owner occupied rates. I mean, as a city, Pamela Furr and people like Pamela Furr, Dolly, me, other people in Madison are going, if I sell my house and move across the county line, I'm going to be better off. And you are seeing that in our numbers. The cities, it is a fallacy that we are growing. Our population is flat in our school enrollment from 2019 to today. And yet, we're looking at $400 million more in spending than we did 6 years ago. We're looking at a flat population. We've basically hit 700,000 residents, and we haven't moved.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's been a month of Sundays. I do get a chance to talk with her on background every once in a while, but
I do. I listen to your show with great regularity. You were asking me what am I doing since running for mayor. So I am leading the Children's Hospital Alliance of Tennessee, and that is a really it's an amazing role, amazing hospitals that we have for kids. But I also spend a fair amount of time. My husband's gone back to work full time, and so I am the frequent 3 to 7 o'clock taxi driver.
Nice.
So my shout out right now is to all the moms and dads who are driving between camp pickup and dropping off at the pool and picking up and going to gymnastics or wherever you're going. Those moms and dads are listening to you, Matt.
How
I'm with you.
You got
them.
the 9-year-old
and a 13-year-old.
9 and 13,
who's now taller than me in heels. In heels. My 13-year-old is taller.
You win the radio war with them in the car?
Oh no, or
do they do the earbuds?
Yeah, earbuds. Yeah. So and frequently I turn it off. I do turn it off when I get them in the car.
Oh boy, I've got. You know what, Chris? I've told you to stop that cussing because there's kids listening in the car. I've told Ken and I've told Chris to don't talk like that. Don't yell. I told Weaver, stop yelling so much. There are children in the car and he won't listen.
We'll do better, I promise.
I think but every once in a while I'll hear you. I feel like it's very timely. I'll turn it on and then I'll hear you thinking like, who is that person? Then I might send you a text as like a nudge of a name.
I want to know about this organ. I want to know about CHAT. Do we call it CHAT?
Yeah, CHAT.
The Children's Hospital Alliance of Tennessee.
Yeah.
What is that?
So that is this state's 5 nonprofit comprehensive children's hospitals. So that's Le Bonheur in Memphis, Monroe Carroll here in Nashville at Vanderbilt, Erlanger Children's in Chattanooga, East Tennessee Children's in Knoxville, and then Niswonger up in the Tri-Cities. And what we do is we advocate for the specific needs of children's hospitals. They are not the same. And it is very heavily Medicaid funded, which is a state program. So that's sort of job one, is we want to have the very best children's hospitals. And it's pretty rare in our region. You're from Alabama originally, but to have 5 really child-focused hospitals in our state is really punching above our weight with respect to our neighbors. And then we also run the Quality Collaborative. So if your child is hospitalized, let's say for an appendectomy or tonsillitis, we want to also make sure that something else doesn't happen to the child, that they fall, right? Or that they get some kind of infection while they're in the hospital. So we run this collaborative. And in that work, we're joined by St. Jude. So that is how do we make sure, and it's really beautiful, we do not compete on quality. And there's a state law that allows us to share that information across hospitals. Central line infections and unplanned, just all kinds of things that are very specific to children's experience in a hospital. How do we make sure that's better? And then the last thing that we do, which is usually the most interesting for people to talk about, is how do we prevent your child from ever coming to the hospital? And so smart people can hold two things in their head at once, right? One is that I can ask for the most money for our children's hospitals to make sure it's the best, but I can actually want it to be empty. That is the best situation. If we had an empty hospital, that would be great.
Right. We didn't spend all our money this year. You can have some of it back.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do we rely, and this is a really, really broad question. I might be opening up a can of worms. I don't know. Do we, do our publicly funded hospitals rely too much on federal money?
Do they rely, does our healthcare, I think you're asking, does our healthcare system, broadly speaking, rely too much on federal money?
What I would refer to as fake money.
You could refer to it as fake money. Right. So Medicaid covers about half of the kids in Tennessee.
Right.
And about half of the births in Tennessee.
Right.
So meaning,
that's just the reality.
That's the reality. As a family of four, to qualify for TennCare, you're making, I think the numbers are currently, and Stephen Smith, if you're listening and I've got this wrong, correct me tomorrow, but I think it's roughly $78,000 a year is where your children would qualify for Medicaid of a family for four. And our median family income as a state is about that number. So the idea that Medicaid is not covering our neighbors and friends is not true in Tennessee. And in Tennessee, it takes generally the position that we do not require private insurers to. We don't put a lot of burden on private companies about what their insurance is required to have. Right? We're very free market state. We don't want to tell private businesses what to do. But we also take the position that we do not want a child to suffer or their family to suffer. And so we have been very, I think, helping families with programs like Katie Beckett. If you are a family that has a child with complex medical needs where they may be wheelchair bound and you don't qualify for Medicaid, there is a program that the state does help your family with extraordinary expenses that might sort of otherwise bankrupt you as having a child with special needs. And so we do, I think, take a compassionate perspective around children that need specialized care.
In your experience as the executive director of CHAT, how would you, in your conversations with these hospitals around the state and hospital officials, how are we doing in terms of childhood health?
Yeah, well, that's, we are doing great in terms of treating children in the hospital. We would like to work more on preventing childhood health issues. So we are in the bottom 10 in the country on many issues around childhood health, right? Our child fatality rate, broadly speaking, is above that of the national average. That's a problem, meaning more children die here. Half of the children that die each year are under 12 months old. So that's a lot of infant deaths. We have, from an obesity perspective, and diabetes rate, we are not doing well. And so in terms of like general nutrition and general health metrics, we have a ways to go.
I feel like, without having any level of any expert, I'm just a dude that talks on the radio, right? And I don't have any kids. So I have just like zero basis of knowledge for this. But my perception is, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that we're doing, in 2025 in Tennessee, we're doing really good, better than ever with, hey, my kid fell down and hit her head. Let's get her to the hospital and let's get her treated and let's fix this. Arm breaks or accident related things like that.
Yeah.
We're doing really good. And that maybe we're not doing so good in the preventative space, in the, hey, if we want to prevent this or that or the other coming up in your child's teenage years, maybe we need some more exercise or some more healthy food. And a lot of that goes back to, I would guess, is parental education and helping them understand that there are better ways than just going through the drive-through, maybe, or there are different alternatives for them. Yeah,
no, in this legislative session, so if we sort of wanted to tick through some places there, so the House actually passed a bill. It wasn't heard in the Senate, and I think it may be next year, but to basically stop having SNAP, one of our federal aid programs, to pay for things like candy bars and soft drinks, right?
Yeah.
And one could say, Alice, that's a really kind of small issue, small ball, but But what the Children's Hospital Alliance probably 15 years ago took on Big Soda then into saying, what do we stock in our vending machines at schools? And you can say that's just part of their day or part of their dollars. But when government says it's okay to spend government money on something, it's sending a signal that it's healthy, right?
Yeah.
We don't let you spend that money on smokes or booze. So we're sort of saying it's okay to buy these things. So I think that, just from a dollars and cents, in sort of education wise, the legislature did this year, pass a bill to help educate parents. So Department of Health and Department of Education together. And we, Children's Hospital Alliance, have sent a bunch of materials from all of our hospitals to help them, in affecting this law, on diabetes awareness, diabetes education, to your point about how do we help, prevent that. Chairman Sapicki, who I know you have frequently on the show, he carried a bill, along with Senator Hensley, around increasing the amount of recess time, so unstructured play for kids before and after school and during school. We know and what's fascinating when you're on the Hill is this was told to me last week. They said, Alice, we know who's against changing SNAP, meaning Big Soda and Big Candy.
Sure.
We don't know who's for it. and you're like, I'm for it. We're for it.
Yeah.
Right. Same with recess, right? All these curricula companies and all these different, teacher groups are like, oh, no, we can't have more recess time because we got to sell more books or do more other stuff. And I maybe not unfairly simplifying that. But the moms are like, the kids need to play, right? And that's such common sense in terms of activity and sort of better place. And then I want to give Leader Lamberth a lot of credit in this last session for his bill around really taking on the CDB cannabis space and recognizing that had been regulated by agriculture and it needed to come under alcohol and tobacco. It needed to have a stronger amount of regulation because what we see in our ERs, what's coming in, what kids are putting in, ingesting, that when it's less regulated, it's hard for us to kind of backwards map and say, what did you ingest and what's there? So he and then also other members of the legislature just sort of looking at vaping broadly. So people are doing the work, but do we have a long way to go? We absolutely do.
How do you see cell phone usage impacting the lives of children?
Yeah. So, cell phone usage, there's a great for all the parents driving around, waiting for your kids and
maybe
wherever
you're
going.
Phone,
maybe you're on your phone. There is a great book called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. And really there was a bill this year passed, which we would refer to as an anxious generation bill around, cell phone usage in schools, right? So what's our role in government? We can look at how the school day is, and we can send a direction that says having this much time on your phone or at school, we see this as a problem. So now it is the law in Tennessee that every school district is required to come up with a policy to make phones unavailable during instructional time. So it's still allowing the locals to figure out, does that mean in a backpack? Does that mean you leave it in your car? Does that mean it's in your locker? But you cannot have that phone during instructional time. And that is important. And when we see the rise in childhood mental health issues and the rise of childhood social media, and that we as a country, and Senator Blackburn has a great bill. It passed the Senate 91-3 last year, 91-3, to hold tech social media companies accountable for using our children as products, and it was never heard in the House.
How about we pass a bill holding parents responsible for something?
Yeah, no, and 100%. And I think anxious generation as a parent of a 13-year-old. So I held the line on not letting my child get a phone until he was 13. And he all the time, he's not listening, thankfully, because he doesn't have a plain old radio. But he all the time says to me, Mama, I need Snap. I need Snapchat. And I'm like, no, you cannot have that. We can talk about when you're 17.
Come
but
on,
parents,
the kids got to Snap.
No, hold the line. He says
need some of the gram in their life.
No, he says to me, it's so formal to give someone my phone number, Mama. And I'm like,
formal?
Yeah. No, that's not like. So yeah, keep them off the cell phones till don't give them one.
Murphy's Law number 183.
Yeah.
The most addictive thing in our society right now is our phone.
Absolutely.
And it's not even close. It's not even close.
Yep.
Beyond, alcohol, fentanyl, name it. I would challenge that our cell phones have become more addictive properties than anything else in our lives.
Yeah, and our children are products.
Yeah,
Our children are
right.
products. So
That's
support Senator Blackburn's bill. We got to get that at the federal level. And then here, as parents, read that book. I would say we had 3 anxious generation bills. 2 of the 3 passed. I think that's a good start. But be bold with other parents and say, no, let's hold the line. Like be okay with not being popular with your 13-year-old.
Do you guys have, real quick, I only have about 30 more seconds, but do you have legislation that you plan on as an organization pushing in the next session?
We will. Yeah, we will.
Not announced yet. You come back and talk to us
yet.
about it?
Yeah, we got to keep talking about everybody.
That's a great little tease.
Yeah, great
I like
tease.
that.
Yeah.
And we'll find out what Alice might be doing next in terms of her political life next time.
Next time. Yeah, that sounds good.
And say now I've ensured that you won't come back for like years.
Oh, I'll come back, Matt Murphy, always.
People can find out more about chat at tnchat.org. Is that
That's right. Yeah.
There you go.